Well, hello there, friend. Welcome to the Construction Leadership Podcast, where we help construction executives lead high-performing teams, finish on time and under budget, without all the firefighting and babysitting, so you can lead with focus and control. I am your host, Bradley Hartmann. Now today, my friend, we're going to be talking about artificial intelligence. Yes, however, not in the way you might be expecting. This isn't about whether artificial intelligence is overhyped, or it's revolutionary, or what the singularity is, and the fact that pretty soon it might be smart enough to kill us all. No, we're not talking about that. We're going to be talking about the leadership responsibility facing every leader today amidst the transformation that's happening. Now, if you are unaware of what this transformation is, let me just give you a little bit of context, because there were two articles, one that was rather long and one that was short, in today, the October 22nd, 2025 edition of the Wall Street Journal. And the first one was under the headline, Tech's Biggest Players Tether Futures to Altman and OpenAI. And this is a conversation about OpenAI, which is the company that has created a couple of the tools that I use every single day, ChatGPT and DALL-E. We'll get to those in a minute. And Sam Altman is the CEO. He launched OpenAI with the money from a bunch of people, including Elon Musk. And it was going to be a not-for-profit because that's how important AI was going to be. And then ChatGPT came out in October of 2023. That's when I started using it. And it became the fastest growing technology of all time. So with all that success, Sam, being a good businessman, thought, you know what? Maybe let's rethink this whole not-for-profit thing. And I'm not going to go into the details here, but if you want to read about that, that is absolutely an example of the theory of the business that is changing and how it impacted some employees and early adopters. But today, OpenAI is generating about $13 billion in revenue, which sounds really impressive. But here's what you need to understand, and this is why it's relevant to each and every one of us. They are looking to build data centers that surely you are aware of, because the computing power that makes all this magic is so intensive. They are looking to invest, and brace for this, my friend, $7 trillion with a T, building new chip manufacturing plants across the world. And these chips we're talking about are the ones that are made by NVIDIA or AMD, and they are the workhorse, the power that has to make those. So not only do they have to make plants that can create those chips, they also have to build these data centers. The investment they're talking about here is not even hyperbole. It's ridiculous. It's trillions with a T. Companies like Oracle and Microsoft are throwing investments in the $100 billion increments. Now, do I think this is all insane? Yeah, a little bit. I do. I think multiple things are true here. There's one quote in this Wall Street Journal article. It said, the giant data center build-out puts OpenAI on the hook for an average of $60 billion in yearly payments, more than 4 times its current revenue. So that is happening. And then in the back, in the Heard on the Street section, there was also this headline, ChatGPT should make retailers nervous. And what it was talking about here was the fact that Walmart has partnered with ChatGPT, as have Etsy and Shopify, so people can buy products directly through ChatGPT without leaving that user interface. It mentions that ChatGPT has about a 75% total market share in terms of AI chatbot traffic, and how Amazon is not partnering with OpenAI. Naturally, they want to create their own so they can own their own destiny. So why do I give you that context? I think that's important because the world is changing around us. And do I think it's possible that Sam Altman and OpenAI get an absolute ton of debt, they over-leverage themselves and come crashing down? I do. What I also believe is that even if they did, other people are going to be picking up because the value AI has provided is so incredible that it's not a joke when people talk about building out $7 trillion worth of infrastructure to make this happen. So I'm going to make a bold statement here right up front. And if you're a CEO, a president, or a senior executive in the construction or LBM space, and you have not invested meaningful time understanding AI and forming an opinion about it, you're doing your company a disservice. More than that, I believe you might be putting your entire organization at risk. And yeah, I know this sounds a little bit dramatic, but I want you to stick with me here because I think by the end of this episode, you'll see why this matters more than almost anything else that you're dealing with right now. This episode was spurred on recently by two conversations with two different executive leaders. The first was a CEO of a billion-dollar construction company, and we were at a conference, and away from his team, he quietly pulled me aside and said, "Hey, Hartmann, I need to be honest with you. I have no context whatsoever when it comes to AI, and I feel guilty saying this. I don't really have an interest in investing more time in it. I've delegated to my team. We have some AI being used in logistics, and I think I'm okay with that." So while his IT team is doing things, he personally has no framework for thinking about it. He doesn't have an opinion on it. He doesn't have a vision for how it could shape his company's future. So this conversation was bouncing around in my head for about 36 hours when I had a phone call with a second executive. He's a former IT pro who's now a president, and he had a completely different background. This person continues to call themselves a technologist. So my assumption was this person would be all in on AI. And I started to tell this individual about my previous conversation with the CEO of the billion-dollar construction firm. And he kind of sat back and he said, "Man, I don't know. I struggle with this." He told me he feels like Jeff Goldblum's character in the film Jurassic Park.
Everyone in the world has the right to enjoy these animals.
Sure, they will. What, we'll have a coupon day or something?
Gee, the lack of humility before nature that's being displayed here staggers me.
Well, thank you, Dr. Malcolm, but I think things are a little bit different than you and I had feared.
Yeah, I know. They're a lot worse.
Now, wait a second. Now, we haven't even seen the part where
Don't let him talk. There's no reason. No, I want to hear every viewpoint. I really do.
Yeah, don't you see the danger, John, inherent in what you're doing here? Genetic power is the most awesome force the planet's ever seen, but you wield it like a kid that's found his dad's gun.
It's hardly appropriate to start hurling generalizations.
If I may, I'll tell you the problem with the scientific power that you're using here. It didn't require any discipline to attain it. You know, you read what others had done, and you took the next step. You didn't earn the knowledge for yourselves, so you don't take any responsibility for it. You stood on the shoulders of geniuses to accomplish something as fast as you could, and before you even knew what you had, you patented it and packaged it and slapped it on a plastic lunchbox, and now you're selling it. You want to sell it. Well,
I don't think you're giving us our due credit. Our scientists have done things which nobody's ever done before.
yeah, but your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should.
Yes, he's thinking like Dr. Ian Malcolm. He's hesitant by the whole thing. He knows he needs to engage, but he's frozen by the weight of whatever might come next. So here we have two smart leaders with two completely different backgrounds who've arrived at the exact same place. These aren't crazy outliers. These aren't laggards. These aren't people who are running businesses that are sure to die off in the next 12 months. And these are the conversations happening in boardrooms and executive offices all across the industry right now. And leaders are either admitting they're completely in the dark, or they're so overwhelmed by everything else, and maybe even the implications of artificial intelligence, that they're waiting for something. They're waiting for some clarity. They're waiting for other people to go first. They're waiting for the perfect moment, but there is no perfect moment. My argument is that perfect moment is now. Now, I entered college in the fall of 1996, and when I entered college, I got an email address for the first time, and I didn't know what the hell it was and how we'd use it. And I remember kind of bumbling around as computers were becoming more and more common. And some of you might have been running businesses back then. Others might have just been starting out your careers. And the internet was just coming along. But plenty of business leaders said things similarly at the time. The internet is something that the IT department has to worry about, or we'll see how this whole thing plays out, or maybe this is a fad and it's not really going to become a thing. And now it's easy 25, 30 years later to look back and think how many of us were kind of late to really understand the impact of the internet. But here's the thing that I'm thinking about. A leader in 1998 who refused to invest time to understand the internet, who didn't form an opinion about how it might reshape the industry, who delegated internet strategy to their IT department and anyone else who was an early adopter, that leader at that moment in time failed their company. Now, that doesn't mean their company failed, but in that leadership role, they failed to provide vision and direction for the future. And that's what leaders are required to do. Now, at that time, they didn't need to become a software engineer. They didn't have to build their own websites, but they did need to understand the strategic implications. They needed to ask the question, how does this change for our customers? How might our competitors use it? How might this impact our supply chain? How might this impact our talent? And that's where we are right now with artificial intelligence. Except AI is moving so much faster in terms of adoption than the internet ever did. Now, this is kind of a litmus test, what I'm about to say, and it'll give you an understanding of what side of the fence you're on, whether you think I don't need to act and I don't want to be part of this, or AI is absolutely going to change everything. But I believe AI is going to have a bigger impact on our lives and our businesses than the internet has had. And I talked to some people and they've already said, I think that's already happened. So that's not that big of a statement. I have other people shake their head and say, all right, you've lost it. You're crazy. You've been listening to too much Elon Musk. Just dial it back. Now, what I also believe is when I listen to this episode 10 years from now, I think it's going to seem even more comical because of how much more impact AI will have made compared to even this prediction. So when I hear executives say, I'm dealing with a lot of other things, or I'm waiting to see how this plays out, or that's why I have my IT team to handle this sort of thing, I'm thinking this is the late 90s all over again. And we know how this played out then. Now, when I come across something like this, that I'm trying to think through my own thinking, if that makes sense, and I'm trying to understand this from different perspectives and to see if there's any giant holes or small holes in my logic, I always go back to Dr. Peter Drucker and Charlie Munger. So I've been thinking about how those two great business minds would have thought about this. Now, Charlie Munger, as I talked about in a recent episode, was famous for his inversion thinking. He was always asking, how do I invert this? How do I stand it on its head and think about it in reverse? So he wouldn't say, how do we succeed with AI? He would say, well, how do I fail? He would love to invert this AI question. So he might ask, how does a construction company or a lumber and building material executive fail their company over the next 5 years? What he might say is, well, you fail by remaining willfully ignorant about the most transformative technology of their career, or by grabbing on to these short quips that might sound like, I don't know, man, I just don't trust it, or $7 trillion sounds like a lot of hype. And they allow that to override rational analysis and understanding. And Munger would also remind us with this quote. He said, I never allow myself to hold an opinion on anything that I don't know the other side's argument better than they do. So are you prepared to argue both sides of this AI in construction? Can you articulate both the case for aggressive adoption and the case for caution? If not, you don't really have an opinion yet. You probably just have a reaction to it. Now, Peter Drucker, on the other hand, famously said, the best way to predict the future is to create it. But you can't create a future if you don't understand it. Peter Drucker spent his entire career studying how knowledge workers and knowledge work can reshape organizations. And AI is the next evolution of this story. It's not replacing knowledge work. It is amplifying it accelerating it, and forcing us to redefine what knowledge work even means today. Yes, both in the office and in the field. In the classic book, The Effective Executive, Peter Drucker also taught us that the executive's job is to ask the right questions. So here's a series of questions that a construction executive or any LBM leader should be asking. So number one would be, where in our organization is knowledge or data or information currently bottlenecked? Because wherever that is, AI can address that immediately. Number two, what tasks are we doing here today that could be done 10 times faster with AI assistance? Number three, how will our customers' expectations change as our competitors adopt these tools? Number four, what skills will our team need 5 years from now, and how do we start building those skills today? And number five, what are the risks of moving too fast? And what are the risks of moving too slowly? Now, obviously, it's going to be impossible for you to form an opinion and answer these questions if you are from a position of ignorance. And I don't mean that in a mean way. I'm just saying, if you haven't invested the time already to understand these tools, you're not going to know how to frame those questions to other people and have an opinion. So you have to engage. Both Charlie Munger and Dr. Peter Drucker would tell you the same thing. Your job as a leader isn't to have all the answers. It's to understand the landscape well enough to make informed decisions, to ask better questions than anyone else in the room, and to position yourself and your organization for a future that's already arriving. And that's the core argument I'm making right now, that a leader's job, an executive leader's job, is to envision a future, not the past, not today, the future, to understand what's coming and start preparing the organization to thrive there. So if you're not investing time to understand AI, to actually use these tools, to form opinions about them, to think through their implications for your specific business, then you're not doing your job. You're managing the present, and you're hoping that the future works out for you. And that, my friends, is not leadership. Now, I don't want to overdo this. You don't have to go take the online MIT class to become a proud certificate-waving AI fanboy. Now, you could. That might not be a bad idea, but you don't have to do that. You don't have to spend 40 hours a week on this. But what I am saying, you need to understand the basics of what these tools can and cannot do. You're going to want to form your own opinions based on direct experience, not articles, not podcasts, not what Larry, the IT guy, has told you about them. You want to ask intelligent questions of your team about where and how AI fits into your current strategy. And you want to make informed decisions about investment, adoption pace, and risk management. If you are not already investing 20 minutes a day or so in some AI, that this is a great place to start. And maybe it's needless to say, but I'll say it anyway. Ignoring it is not an option. It doesn't mean that you can let IT just handle it. Now, they can manage the implementation, but they can't set strategic direction. Only you can do that. So in the hopes that you can pick and choose something that might fit well based on what you're already dealing with, here are the artificial intelligence tools that I'm currently using today. First off is ChatGPT. I've been using this since October 23. Our team has invested in the business plan. And I just talk to this thing like it's the world's best research assistant. I do not share financial information with it, but I use it for drafting, for research, for brainstorming. And I love talking to it as if it's a really insightful sparring partner as I'm thinking about opportunities and risks and new alternatives. It really helps me broaden the number of ideas or opportunities that I'm thinking about, and it's really good for problem solving. About a month ago, I invested in Claude.ai, and this is because a data scientist I hired to manage our sales analytics product, he told me that as a data scientist, I'm consistently blown away by Claude. So that was enough for me. Right now, I'm paying $20 a month, going month to month on it, and I would describe it this way. If ChatGPT is Captain Kirk, fun, charismatic, it's got a good little sense of humor, it's relatively brief, Claude is Spock. This thing goes deeper and faster with a lot more analytical rigor. What I've been doing now over the last month or so is opening up both on 2 different browsers and dropping in the same query into Claude and ChatGPT to see how they respond with each one. Now, on my iPhone, I use the app Perplexity. I use the free version. I honestly don't know why I only use it on my phone, but I do. I do not use it anywhere else. Now, Perplexity is great for research, and it provides a related section with follow-up questions that you probably should be asking. So it really facilitates you going down rabbit holes if you are inclined to do things like that. The next one I use for graphics and visual content is DALL-E, all caps DALL-E. And this is under the family of OpenAI, so it's a sibling to ChatGPT. Now, while I still use professional designers, DALL-E is my starting point for every design process. I recently did a keynote, it was an hour long. 100% of the artwork from my keynote there was created with DALL-E. Now, on the hardware front, in May of 2024, I met up with the Walker Lumber executives in Nashville, and Tim Roach, their COO, showed me this thing called Plod. Now, Plod is a piece of hardware. It's real slim. It can fit on the back of your iPhone, and it records, transcribes, and summarizes meetings using AI. So it has been a game changer for just tossing on the table and recording these meetings. It can do mind maps. It can provide next steps. So it is my go-to tool for processing in-person conversations. Now, here's an interesting thing. The most powerful thing that I've discovered recently about artificial intelligence is using my voice instead of typing. Yes, it's dictating. Now, for months that I've known that ChatGPT has had a little microphone icon, and I've completely ignored it. And then somebody pointed out to me that I can speak, especially in my Chicago accent, 3.5 times faster than I type. So I shut my office door. I told my wife/colleague to ignore my rambling, and I started dictating instead of typing. Let me just tell you, this has been absolutely transformative. The speed, the conversational flow, I will just ramble on for minutes at a time. It'll transcribe all of it and inevitably help me think through what I'm talking about. It's a small change that has delivered huge results. So that is my AI diet, and I've been using them for various lengths of time. Here's my challenge to you. Pick one tool. ChatGPT is probably the easiest place to start. The free version is just fine for where you're at now. And spend 15 to 20 minutes a day for 2 weeks using it for real work. So whether it's drafting an email that you've been putting off, or outlining a presentation, or trying to figure out what you're going to do with Sam in finance and all the BS that he's been up to, and that there has to be a response and you've been procrastinating that, use it to help you think through an actual challenge that is on your plate today. And after 2 weeks of using ChatGPT, you will have enough context to have an opinion. Then pick up a different tool and start that process over. Again, start with anything that can use your voice. Perplexity on my iPhone, I use voice. It's awesome. ChatGPT, Claude, all of those can be initiated by voice. That is going to save you a ton of time and energy. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Are there risks? Yes, of course there will be risks, known and unknown. And it's impossible to use any of these tools and marvel at their capabilities without understanding that there have to be some powerful downsides to them. And this is exactly why you need to engage to get an understanding when people come to you with passionate arguments for or against or somewhere in the middle. You want to be able to have that firsthand context. You can't lead any team through any period of transformation from a position of ignorance. Given all the construction that is going to be required to make AI happen, as it already has with data centers and chip fabs, we are intricately involved in this, whether we like it or not. And many of you right now, you have been profiting and you are building your business because of the boom that has come with data centers and AI. So you don't have to love it. You certainly do not need to become an evangelist. And I think the most important thing, regardless of where you are on the spectrum with adoption to AI, the important thing is a little bit of self-awareness and humility, so none of us come across as an insufferable blowhard. And hopefully, I'm not doing that either now. The leaders who get this right, who invest the time now, who build informed perspectives, will help their team navigate wherever we need to go throughout whatever's coming over the next decade and beyond. But the leaders who wait, who delegate this, I do think there's going to be lots of explanations to their employees and their boards, and they're going to be putting their companies at risk. So friend, thank you for listening. If this resonated with you, please share it with another leader who needs to hear it. And let me know what you discover as you start engaging with these new tools. Inevitably, I learn as much from your experiences as you do from mine. So as always, thanks for listening. We're going to close out with our leadership mantra. You, my friend, are owed nothing. Deliver value first. Make it a great week.